One of our staff members came on board the same time as I did this year, and as a result of them coming on board, they've changed the marketing strategy specifically with our guide. That strategy looked more towards a story format and inspiring people to participating in recreation programs, as opposed to in the past it was like an informational piece where you would use it like a dictionary. You would look up a program that you specifically knew about and try to find the time and date, and now it's more about inspiring population. I know that we are also driving that change now as part of my portfolio, so we teamed up with a group of Kin 465 students to do a communications analysis of the website and the marketing guide, the recreational guide, in the fall, and did that from like an inclusive lens, looking at how we might marginalize people of different ethnicities or cultural backgrounds or physical disabilities, people who might identify as LGBTQ, and how are they represented or not represented in our marketing materials. As a result of that communications analysis, we'll be rolling that out every year to kind of evaluate our progress. And we also are going to be sharing that tool as a best practice piece for other recreational facilities across North America at a conference hopefully in May, and also sharing it internally with communications people across campus to try to get people to think more about equity and inclusion and how they market or communicate. As a result of that annual analysis, we're actually also incorporating guidelines and strategies with our communications team in terms of reasonable goals that they can set for each year on how they could improve what we offer. For example, in the spring guide, I was encouraged to give input on some of the tip areas. In the past, we haven't had tips in our recreational guide, and even my ability to influence that piece, I was able to navigate something that I think is one of the barriers for participation is access around financial access. And so I wanted to highlight free resources around nutrition, which ties into people's energy levels, which actually influences behavior around participation. And I was able to tie in that free piece and also mention that it was offered in Punjabi and Mandarin, because that's important for some of our marginalized community, which is our University Neighborhoods Association community residents. Mm-hmm. So trying to pull in opportunities as much as possible for that, on those like on the ground moments, and to give expertise on inclusion in that way. I see that we're going to be kind of in leaps and bounds ahead of some of the other marketing and communications work that's been done on campus. So it's pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. It's hard to include everyone because there's only so many pictures, for example, in a recreational guide. And we also have had a lack of resources dedicated towards photography. And I'm talking visual representation right now. Certainly contextual representation in terms of language is also a lack of, in terms of being able to translate some aspects of our guide, for example, for non-English speakers or non-first English speakers. In our communications analysis, we certainly did determine that there's a lack of representation around First Nations people, people with disabilities. We had a pretty good representation of gender. I think we do a fairly good job at this time representing Asian women and Asian men in our guide, but I think our guide lacks diversity in terms of how you can diversify what clothes you wear when you work out, for example, and that representing cultural, religious affiliation in our guide is important. So that has improved in the fall guide, but it'll continue to improve. So we've actually dedicated financial resources in the future to look at diversifying our photo shoots. Our photo shoots have been based on who we can get to easily take a picture of, and that's usually our intramural staff, which is interesting that our intramural staff tends to be a population that is skinny and in shape, for lack of better words. We're working on that, basically, how do we do that? And we also are partnering with Internal Communications, which is a group specifically here at UBC that does communications to staff and faculty, like internally within UBC, and trying to garner partnership around photography to engage them in taking more photography of staff and faculty being active in non-traditional ways, because our work is looking at reducing sedentary behavior as well as take part in recreational programs. So it's kind of like our vision is expanded.